If you want to paddle some truly wild rivers, Florence County in the far northeast corner of the state has exactly what you're looking for. Here you'll witness classic Northwoods streams in their most remote, unspoiled splendor. In 1965, the Wisconsin legislature designated the Pine, Popple, and nearby Pike as state wild rivers. This forms a protection zone along their banks that will prevent any future encroachment of human development and keeps their waters flowing forever free. The neighboring Brule isn't under the Wild Rivers shelter, but it is similarly protected by national and state forest land ownership along most of its length. Born in the vast, remote forests and swamps of the Nicolet National Forest, the rivers flow and tumble their way from west to east toward Lake Michigan. After leaving the federal land, they proceed through the Pine and Popple Wild Rivers Project. Before you begin your visit, be sure to stop in and talk to the friendly, helpful people at the Wild Rivers Interpretive Center, located in the town of Florence. They can give you advice on water levels, camping, and provide maps that will direct you to whatever you may want to see or do in the region. The National Forest has terrific campgrounds to set up a base camp while paddling in the area. If river camping is more to your liking, all three rivers allow primitive camping along their shores. Remember to ask about the rules of their use and locations while at the Interpretive Center. Because of the remoteness of the surrounding forest, access points along the rivers are primitive at best. Most are located at bridges on unimproved gravel roads with very little room for parking. Just what you might expect along a wild river. Like all of northern Wisconsin, the lands surrounding the rivers have a long history of logging, an industry that is still prominent today, and along with tourism, is a major part of the local economy. The wild rivers are well known for their spectacular waterfalls and turbulent rapids, many of which are accessible by short hikes from nearby roads. LaSalle Falls is especially impressive. Here the Pine River plunges 20 feet through a narrow slit in the Earth's crust. With close to 200 miles to choose from, it was hard for us to pick which segments of these three rivers to show you. In the end, we decided to focus on sections that offered up a little excitement with enough riffles and relatively easy rapids to appeal to the wild side in most paddlers. The Brule River makes up 52 miles of Wisconsin's northern border with Michigan. When the Paint River joins it from the north, just east of Florence, they both turn into the Menominee River. Still dividing the two states, it eventually drains into Lake Michigan. Don't make the mistake of confusing the Brule River with the Bois Brule to the west. They're entirely different rivers flowing into two separate Great Lakes. For most of its duration, the Brule amuses paddlers with delightful riffles and low-hazard rapids. We like the 10 miles between Forest Roads 2152 and 2150 because of the above-average amount of rapids that develop due to the river descending at an average rate of 18 feet per mile. Most access points along the Brule are undeveloped and the shuttles are lengthy, due to the vast remoteness of the encompassing forest. This isolation is what makes all three of these rivers appealing to paddlers who yearn for adventure and solitude. Out of the three rivers, the Brule has by far the most consistent flow rate. There is almost always enough water in it for paddling, even during parched summer months. The level you see here, close to 1,000 cubic feet per second on the USGS gauge located in Florence, is much higher than normal. 450 CFS is more typical for spring and 250 for summer. Seven and a half miles into this 10-mile day trip is the most notable drop on the river. 2-Foot Falls is a natural ledge in the bedrock that produces an easy Class 2 rapid. At this high water level, it's a simple task to paddle over it. At normal levels, the preferred path is a chute that forms slightly right of center, right about where the tree is temporarily stuck. The Brule is a perfect river for multi-day camping trips. The Wisconsin side is mostly public land, however there are some areas of private property, so check with the Wild Rivers Interpretive Center for a detailed map and advice while planning your adventure. The Pine is probably the best known and most paddled of the three rivers. It begins deep in the heart of the Nicolet National Forest and tumbles its way east, eventually emptying into the Menominee River near Iron Mountain, Michigan. A section of the Pine we enjoy exploring are the 9 miles that start at Stevens Lake Road and end at the National Forest's Chipmunk Rapids campground. Other than seeing a few streamside cabins near the put-in, you'll encounter a near-wilderness setting filled with wildlife and excitement. The scenery rates from great to excellent, with little or no signs of human development. The river conditions vary between long stretches of calm, tranquil flatwater, lengthy runs of exhilarating shallow rapids, and short, steep drops that can either be run through or portaged around. Most of the river becomes much too low for paddling after June 1st. In fact, early spring is the most reliable time to find enough flow. The water level gauge is located far downstream below a dam, resulting in relatively inaccurate readings for the far upstream sections. You can use it for general river levels, but for a more accurate account, contact the Interpretive Center or Wild Rivers Adventure Company. Directly downstream from here, you'll enter the Wild Rivers project, and another wonderful section with more of the same types of riffles and rapids, including 2 sets of falls that can be easily portaged. Below the Small Pine Ridge, the river widens, slows, and water flow becomes much more stable, allowing paddling and tubing well into the summer months. A favorite on this serene stretch is one called the Oxbow. Here the river makes a huge bend of 3.5 miles with a short quarter-mile walk back to the put-in. No car shuttle necessary. Like the other 2 rivers, the Popple springs out of bogs and marshes in the Nicolet National Forest. After a short but exciting life, it inevitably empties into the Pine River, above the Pine River flowage. This is the smallest of the 3 rivers, and in our opinion, the wildest. We'd like to show you our favorite piece of the river. It's the 11 miles between Forest Roads 2398 and 2159. Here the river drops up to 20 feet per mile where there are rapids, a rate that may be too intimidating for beginning paddlers, but just right for those seeking a taste of whitewater in a wilderness setting. The trip starts right out with a few sets of Class 1 and 2 rapids. aware, the Popple has a tendency to have downfall in it. Caution should be observed when paddling its waters, especially around blind corners. Midway, the Popple snakes its way through an expansive tract of marsh and alder thickets teeming with wildlife. As soon as you float out of the marsh, the river returns to its playful self once again, serving up more challenging, exciting rapids, the best of which is located just upstream from the first 2159 bridge. Because of its length and blind corners, this rapid should be scouted for deadfall prior to running. Conveniently, the car shuttle passes over the river here. There's a path along the left shore, easily accessible from the bridge. This is probably the least paddled of all three rivers for two reasons, the most prevalent of which is the fact it seldom has enough water in it. Even during early spring, it's difficult to find it swollen enough to enjoy. On the day we filmed, the USGS gauge downstream near the town of Fence showed 350 CFS, a perfect level. The second reason for being less traveled is that it takes a higher level of paddling skill to navigate the many rapids. In fact, there's a section of the Popple below Morgan Lake Road that is filled with steep rapids and waterfalls. Therefore, it should only be attempted by skilled whitewater paddlers in appropriately outfitted canoes and kayaks. So were we successful in convincing you to pay a visit to Florence County and experience these wild rivers for yourself? The more we show our support and use these streams, the more likely the state of Wisconsin will improve and expand upon the Wild Rivers project. Now get out there and paddle. See you on the next river.